Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Generally Irritable, brought to you today by BetterHelp.com. Yeah, that's right. You heard it. We have our first official sponsor, and this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com. So we'll play that ad bit here in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to sit with you and chat for a little bit because that's, as we know, what we're supposed to do. We're just supposed to take up some time, blah, 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 until we get some viewers on to hang out with us. So I'm trying some new equipment this week. So if you are watching, if you are listening, and just let me know, make sure that I can hear you, if you would. Or excuse me, that you can hear me. If you can hear me, all right, just give me a comment in wherever you're watching, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Just give me a little nod that you can hear me okay. Like I said, I'm trying out new equipment, new earbuds to not have to use the cable. So I want to make sure that everything is working correctly. All righty. So Mr. Benjamin Nathaniel Redic II is going to be joining me this evening, which I'm very, very excited about. I really wanted to have him on tonight just so that we could have a little bit of fun with our political opponents. So, as many of you are aware, we had our first really big congressional forum this week. It was co-hosted by VPR and PBS, so it was both on the TV, on YouTube, on the radio, and everywhere. And so the Republican debate was Tuesday at noon, and then the excuse me, wait, was that this week? Hold on, where's my calendar? Oh my God, things are like blending together, y'all. And then the Democrat debate was Thursday evening. So that was an interesting time. Yes, the VPR candidate forum was this past Tuesday, the 7th. And then the Dems was on Thursday. So what we're going to do this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about the campaign, about where we're at, give everybody some updates. Some interesting things that I've learned on the campaign trail so far. I'm going to share with you what I think our biggest threats are. And spoiler alert, it's not the Democrats and it's not the press. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to be real talk, family talk time. We're going to have a little bit of that. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to check out side by side the questions that the Democrats got in their debate versus the questions that we got in our debate. So that's going to be super fun. Let's see. I'm still waiting for Benjamin to hop on. Somebody in the chat, make sure type, let me know that you can hear me. Say, yes, you can hear me, that you can hear me okay, and that we're not having weird sound issues. Okay, there's Benjamin. You ready to come into the stream, honey? Can you hear me? Probably not. You're ready? Are you nodding? Yes. Hello, Benjamin. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fine Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Tell me about those weapons behind you. You know, people ask me that all the time. And when I had your sword rack behind me at one point, why don't you share with folks that one that you have? It doesn't have the sheath in it that's curved around the top. That's the one that you use for a lot of your characters that are African based and stuff, right?
Yeah, the one
about that.
Okay, we can talk about something so totally random.
Totally random.
Basically works, functions like an Egyptian axe. I think they were typically gold and bronze.
Oh.
And if you see old Egyptian pharaohs, you often see them with a weapon like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I discovered that weapon while training, and what was cool about it was it had some hooks and some different features. Blunt, sharp. You could reinforce it when you do lunges and things here. And since I learned a lot of things with the like a gladius style, or short
Yeah.
sword,
Yeah.
slashes. So this kind of fit really well with that. So yeah, when I get
Cool.
a chance to do movies and kind of create characters, I like to blend in African style weaponry and things that people wouldn't be super aware of.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's what I've been talking about you a lot this week, and about that you do fight choreography and stunts and stuff like that. So that's a great opportunity for people to learn a little bit about what you do and how much fun you are.
Oh,
My
yeah.
husband is awesome.
Oh, that's
But
very sweet, honey.
I'm sorry for embarrassing you. So I'm trying to figure out where do we begin? Do we just dive right into the debates? Or do we dive right? Anybody, first of all, everybody who's watching, just as a reminder, you can write a comment in the chat, write a question in the chat. Feel free to let this be kind of a ask me anything episode as well. Just, ask us any questions, particularly if there's something from the debates that we go over that you think, like, how would you have answered that? Or, can you expand upon that a little bit more? Something like that. Where'd you go?
We want to adjusting something.
Oh, you're so silly.
It's making adjustments.
Adjustments.
Yeah, I'm realizing, my camera's up kind of high.
Mm.
So I was trying to adjust a little bit.
Got it.
Yeah, it's all good.
Got it.
Normally it's fine, but I got it sitting in this new cage because one of the
Oh.
situation. So it's a little higher than normal.
When are you going to get me my mount? Aren't you supposed to get me one? I want my own cage.
A cage?
I want a cage for my camera. I want to be fancy.
It's in the cart for you to buy. That's where it's at right now.
Medic Knight says Benjamin Redic for governor 2022. Yes.
I'll consider that.
We could write you in. We could do a write-in campaign on the Republican ballot.
Would they accept that?
Or you could run as a libertarian, actually.
Yeah. Would that even work? Would they be like, nah, he's not even here. Nah.
I mean, you pay taxes here. You have a mortgage here. Hey, you shut your mouth. You shut your filthy mouth right now.
Wow. Democracy, everyone. That's what democracy is.
Okay, so we can jump right into this. But before we do, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we officially have a sponsor here at Generally Irritable, and it's BetterHelp.com. So we talk a lot. I'm actually going to play the recorded video, but I'm probably going to do the promos live in the future because it's really easy to pitch this program. BetterHelp.com. It's a way to help get into therapy and counseling and get help for whatever it is you might be dealing with. We talk all the time on this program about mental health and how important it is when we're talking about addiction, when we're talking about guns and violence and all this stuff. The it is when we're no,
it's me.
Are you playing it on your side?
Yeah, I was watching.
Like so much of what we're dealing with would be better if people had access to good mental health. And so here we go. Let's roll the promo. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I don't know about you, but I've definitely struggled with some emotional stuff the last couple of years. I need someone to talk to that's not just my husband or friends or family. I need somebody who's experienced and licensed and trained to listen and help me work through the fear and the anger and the frustration that I've been feeling over the last couple years with these lockdowns. So you too can go to BetterHelp and schedule an appointment with one of their 20,000 licensed therapists. So you go on, you fill out a questionnaire. Within 48 hours, they've paired you with someone who has experience in the field that you specifically are wanting help with. Then you schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus unlimited messaging. And all of this is secure and confidential. Join the over 2 million people who have already taken charge of their mental health. We've got a special offer for our viewers, 10% off your first month of services when you use the special code generally irritable. So you want to go to betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com/generally irritable and start saving today. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. That is so exciting. We have our first official sponsor. And it's actually for something that I'm really excited about and talk about and try to encourage people to get after anyway. So thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. Very exciting. Okay, so tonight we're going to laugh at the media a little bit. And so what we're going to do, we're going to poke a little fun. We are going to point out the obvious ways in which the game is rigged against Republicans, right? So we all kind of knew, I kind of knew going in that, you know, VPR and PBS are not necessarily folks who are Republicans, right? They're not conservatives normally. And so we kind of knew that it would be something weird. And then I watched the Senate candidate debate, the Republican Senate candidate debate, and I said, wow, okay, this is wild. Benjamin, did you watched some of that with me, right? I was playing some of the bits for you.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Senate, I was super frustrated after. And then we just set to work, right? It was basically like, okay, they're going to ask us questions to try to make us look stupid intentionally, right? They're going to ask us questions to try to tie us to certain activities or certain Republicans to say that, oh, we're all the same person, right? We're going to try to put you in a box.
Yes.
And so it was like, okay, we set to work, just being prepared for those questions and to not let them be, gotchas or whatever. Yeah. That was what we did. So, okay, what should we do? Should we play the Republican first and then the Democrat first?
I think that's good.
Or the Democrat first and then the Republican first?
I think the Republican then the Democrat.
So you see how our sounds and then how much different theirs sounds.
Correct.
Okay, so let's see. Let's see. Actually, we didn't even get all of the same questions or topics. And, okay, so what do we start with? Let's see. We got asked what qualifies us to run. So okay, actually, you know what, honey? We should have planned this first. Should we just play the ones that are the same or similar questions? Or should we go in order?
Play the ones that are similar.
Okay, hold on. I thought I had this in my head, and now I'm looking at it again, and I'm like, oh my God, the questions that they asked us are so much different. It's silly. Okay, let's see. Gun laws. Let's see. This one starts. We're going to share. Let me share my screen here. So you guys will see I have this stuff all queued up. Okay. So we'll start with gun control. That was the third question we got asked. It was the fifth question they got asked. So third question, 1458. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to share this correctly. I got to check the box that says share system sound. Okay, there we go.
Next question. Mass shootings across the country have left Americans terrified, grieving, and calling for change. Vermont passed a slate of gun control laws 4 years ago. They included raising the legal age to buy a gun to 21 and banning bump stocks, which allows semi-automatic rifles to fire faster. Now, according to polling, more than 2/3 of Vermonters supported those new laws. Would you support any similar gun control laws at the federal level? And if not, why not? Anya Tino, let's start with you.
Okay. So did you hear that, guys? Okay. So they said basically Should we pass the same gun laws that were passed in Vermont in 2018? Should we pass them federally? That was the gist of the question. Okay, now their gun control question was this. Let's see.
Some Vermonters believe in responsible gun ownership. Others want to see a completely gun-free society. Where do you fall on this spectrum? And how will your experiences as a Vermonter help you convince your future colleagues to follow your vision? Senator Ballant, let's start with you.
So did you see the difference there? It was, hey, we have these gun laws in Vermont that we passed. Do you think we should pass them federally? So that was a direct question about, do you support this thing that has already happened here? And then what they get is, where do you fall on the spectrum of gun ownership? And how would your experience as a Vermonter help you talk to people about it?
Well, actually, if you really pay even more attention, the premise before, if I'm not mistaken, is she said, people basically are terrified over things that have recently happened, which kind of pushes you in the camp of we have to do something. Now,
Correct.
You can read it that way, you can not read it that way, but that's how it sounds when I hear something like that. Like, people are terrified. They want you to do something. What are you going to do? And I think that that's an interesting thing. Not to mention, like, from a federal standpoint, when you look at gun laws, it's like different places might need to have different gun laws. There might need to be some general stuff that happens, whatever, but like different places are going to have their different situations. Like if you have a bunch of farmers and they have a bunch of hogs, they're not shooting those with 9mm. So maybe those people would have feel a different way in one area than this group over here. I'm not saying that I'm for any of those things. I'm just saying I could understand how different places might fall in different areas on the spectrum,
right?
Versus federal government make all this unanimous across the country where we're different.
Well, and that's what it's like. So first of all, you're wedging the question, right? You're wedging it into, everyone is scared because of mass shootings and all this terrible stuff. And so they think we should do this. And so the implication in that is if you're not for that, then you're for mass shootings and you're for bad things happening to people.
Or you're okay with that.
And so I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it, but I feel like the premise is set up with like a negative to begin with.
Well, you're not reading into it, because if I had reworded that same question and said, thousands of people on a daily basis between law enforcement and individuals who are in the community defend themselves with firearms on a daily basis. With that in mind, how do you feel about more restrictive gun laws that make it more difficult for women who are just filing, for instance, filing a restraining order against an abusive partner or whatever. How do you feel about making it more difficult and making
it literally means guns? Yes. So literally, if you say the opposite of whatever I say, the implication is that you don't care about those people.
Yes. It puts you in a weird zone, and it takes a person paying very close attention to the way the question is being asked to see the nuance in there. That's hard. It's actually hard to do.
Well, and, how about you ask the Republicans what their experience as a Vermonter, where I could tell you that I learned my experience as a Vermonter was learning how to shoot a gun when I was 6 and learning responsible gun ownership since I was a child.
Interestingly enough, my experience with guns didn't really start till I was 18. I never wanted to play cowboys and Indians. We were playing samurais and ninjas. It was all about these hands.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
And we fought. So I was never into guns. None of my friends were heavy into guns. I didn't play a lot of games that had guns in them. I didn't really get into firearms until I was a federal armed guard and had to go to the range to qualify and get trained. I got trained, then I said, oh, well, then it was different. Then after I got trained, I got a gun just to learn how to shoot and practice and be good at the range, be proficient. And then That's when I started looking into gun ownership. And then as a mature adult with a family to protect, etc., you start to think, well, am I going to fight 7 dudes trying to bust in this place? Am I going to fight 4 people with knives to protect my household? No, I'm not going to do that. And what if they have a gun? Maybe it would make sense for me to be able to protect myself against them and other individuals who might wish to do me harm or dominate me. And that was my journey. So I went 24 years with no real interest in a firearm. And I had a firearm. My mom had a firearm in the house. I just never had an interest.
That's wild. I would have thought your mom would have gotten you into that earlier.
No, she had a pistol and it was loaded. And this is, again, I was a weird child. I followed what I did, what I was told. For the most part. She had a loaded 38. It was for protection because we lived downtown in a seedier part of Killeen, Texas, right off Rancier. And my mom, I mean, she could fight, but she's not trying to fight no 2 or 3 grown men coming in to rape and murder. And so her thought was, I'm getting a gun. So she got a gun, had it under her bed, under her pillow. And she said, this is for if someone comes in here to hurt us, don't touch it. And I never pulled it. The only time I ever pulled that gun out was my mom got into a physical fight with my stepdad. And I was maybe 14 and he was a complete grown man. Like, yeah, military dude. I mean, like I was a skinny little kid and I grabbed the gun just because he was on top of my mom. He didn't do anything, but he was on top of my mom and I picked up the gun. And that was the only time I've ever picked up a gun like in that situation, that type of situation. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just realizing they asked us about abortion. They did not ask the Democrats about abortion.
Well, they probably already know where they stand. So there's no reason to ask them.
I don't know, but that's pretty amazing. I'm just saying, wait, where is it? Okay. Okay, here we go. This is our question about abortion.
Overturned. It is not automatically overturning the right to abortion. And in the state of Vermont, it would probably have no effect.
Hold on. Oh, I had the wrong time there. Hopefully you got the right time when you edited the videos for me, honey.
Yeah.
Yes, just so everybody knows, the short clips of our debate, the questions and my answers are going to be loaded this week.
These would make childcare more affordable.
Oh,
is that the right approach?
If hold not, Here we go.
Let's start with you.
Here we go.
Yeah, so spend that time under the learning of their parents.
Let's start with you.
Dang it, guys. Sorry.
Well,
and I couldn't get it to work.
We have time for one more question before a break. Abortion is an issue that has created a...
Baby, what are you playing?
Oh, I was trying to do something with the page. I'm sorry, my bad. I was trying to do something with our post and share it, but it's like
okay. Well, you gotta
every time.
Yeah, you gotta mute them, baby. Come on now.
You mute.
Come on now.
Major divide among Americans, particularly since a leaked Supreme Court draft opinion revealed the court could soon repeal Roe v. Wade. What is your stance on abortion, and would you support federal legislation that either protects or bans the right to an abortion? Anya Tinio, let's start with you.
First of all, she called Anya the wrong name like 3 times. I'm not even kidding you. So that was really rude. So that was it. So would you either support a ban or protection? They got nothing on that question. Here's what they got for a question instead. What was that? The 5th question? Oh, their 5th question was gun control. Let's see. They got a real question. Let's see. Here's one of the real questions they got that we did not.
Our next question is about the Supreme Court. Given the likely repeal of the landmark abortion rights ruling in Roe v. Wade, many fear that other Supreme Court precedents, including marriage equality, could be vulnerable. How would you protect those precedents? And do you believe that modifying the court itself, such as imposing term limits or adding more seats, is part of the answer? Let's start with Shanae Chase Clifford.
Yeah.
So they get a real question about the Supreme Court and stuff like that we get a question about abortion. So they get to like pontificate and we get put on the spot. This is when I talk about, I feel like they got softball questions. Like that is a topic that they like to talk about. This is something that they think is really great. Many of them go on to say that we should pack the Supreme Court and, you know, we need to federalize more things. Go watch it for yourself. You know, you should. But this is, they got asked a topic that is one that they actually like to talk about because they think it's good for them. So this is what I don't like. Why did you give us questions that you know are more likely to turn off voters from our perspective, but you give them questions that they like to talk about from their perspective? Do you track it with me?
Yeah, well, there's a couple different ways you can look at that. You could say they were asked a question that would appeal to their base, but definitely not appeal to your base. And you were asked a question that would appeal to your base and definitely not appeal to their base. The reason that that's somewhat difficult, I guess, in this situation, especially, I mean, that's a way to look at it. Reason that's would be difficult even if you look at it that way is that, well, who's watching this? Like,
yeah, that's true.
You know, it just
Democrats primarily.
So
liberals, independents.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. That one's a little dicier.
I just think, again, like you should want to know the same. Like, do you just assume that they're all pro-choice? That they're all pro-abortion? Is that what the assumption is?
I don't, and that's what I'm curious. Like, how did they come up with these questions? I know some of them at the end come from the callers and things of that nature, but the other ones, the producers say, hey, this is what we want to ask Republicans? Is it because you think this is what people need to know about them? Is this because I don't know why they're not the same.
Well, and
I would personally think you'd want the same questions across a spectrum of things, and you want to see where people land on those same issues.
Correct. And so this is where I think this is where the I don't think there's anything else that they ask that's the same. Yeah. We get what? Go ahead.
I mean, it's like if someone's saying, I want to know about these people, it's like, well, Ben likes chickens, but Susan eats waffles on Saturdays. I mean, those are not related things. I don't know how that's helpful to when you're trying to compare candidates. I'll be very curious to find out how they made the decision on picking these questions.
That is a really good question. Maybe I'm being too suspicious. Maybe I'm too presumptive to think that it's for silly reasons. So let's see. Here's some other options we have. So we got asked about federally subsidized childcare.
Okay.
Had to stay home to care for children. This exodus drew the country's attention to how broken our childcare system is. Now, Democrats have suggested that federal subsidies would make at the federal level, and if not, why not?
Defensive uses of a firearm.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys.
Check, and he would not have gotten the gun in the first place.
Oh.
Let's move on to the next question. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, about 11 million women left the workforce. Many of them had to stay home to care for children. This exodus drew the country's attention to how broken our childcare system is. Now, Democrats have suggested that federal subsidies would make childcare more affordable. Is that the right approach? If not, what is? Leah Madden, let's start with you.
So the implication here is that we need to do something to subsidize childcare, that the government is responsible for doing childcare. And if not a federal subsidy, what are you going to do? And again, this is with that negative premise that all of these people are suffering and everything is terrible and it's this fault and we need to do something about it.
Correct. Whereas, and I mean, there's a couple of different ways to feel about that just in general, but I've always thought that that's a very interesting perspective, that people have that the government is just responsible for so much stuff. It's just so strange to me.
Yeah.
Anyways, but you
Yeah,
are right.
it really is.
It's a setup to be, if you don't answer those questions carefully, you will come off sounding heartless, which is what a lot
Yes.
of the
That's the
conservatives
point.
I've seen who have these conversations and debates. They get asked a question like that, and when you give a quick, crisp answer to something like that, that might be constitutionally accurate and all the other stuff, that's well and good. You just sound like you don't care.
Correct.
So
Yeah, it's set up for us to sound heartless. Fish and Chimp says it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
that is correct.
That was pretty good. I feel like that should be in like Sun Tzu or
I think
something.
that might be Sun Tzu.
Okay, this is my answer. I'm
Hmm.
just going to share my answer because I don't think she was expecting this.
Erica Redic, let's go to you.
I think the question we have to start with is
Oops.
why is childcare so expensive? I remember when my niece was born, and we worked together as a family to babysit and take care of my niece, and then eventually my niece and nephew, to relieve some of the burden off of my sister. So we as a family were able to help with that. Now, not everyone has that option, but what we see in places like Vermont is that the state government has actually severely restricted people's ability to have local home childcare. So whereas, the gal down the street who used to have a business babysitting, a handful of kids in the neighborhood, that's been shut down and that's been restricted. And now people are on waiting lists for years to get into childcare facilities. So we have to look at what the government is doing to cause the problem.
Well, what are your suggestions for how to fix it? What do you think the government is doing to cause this problem?
Well, like I just said, the government is restricting people's ability to have businesses and childcare facilities.
So are you saying that there is too much regulation of childcare facilities? And if so, what would you remove?
I would say so. That is just the beginning of the issue. I also think it's really unfortunate in a lot of circumstances that people feel like they have to put their kids in childcare. I would love to see an economy and a culture where a parent can stay home and take care of their kids rather than feeling like they have to be a part of the rat race and earn, make more for all of the things and the stuff. I would like to see restoration to the family. And as your congresswoman, I will make sure there are as few restrictions as possible for you to be successful in whatever endeavors you choose.
So, this is every opportunity. That echo is bad, baby. What is that? You might need to put headphones in.
You might need to put headphones in.
Oh my gosh, whatever. They don't expect us to answer stuff like that. They just expect us to say, "Oh, it's not the government's job." And I'm like, "No, dude, part of the reason why childcare is so expensive in Vermont is the government's fault. Why are you're going to take more people's money? So instead of just like letting people have neighborhood childcare facilities like we used to have, you want to restrict that and then take money out of people's pockets to give it to other people to pay for somebody else to take care of their kids."
I actually had a conversation about this today.
Yeah.
We were not talking about this particular issue. We're actually talking about reproductive rights and all that. It was much longer conversation. One of the things I thought was interesting, I said, well, part of it has to do with the way we do life in society now. I don't think we're really supposed to meant to live. I think we're meant to live in cities with 1 million plus people, and half of those people are stacked on top of each other like, freaking sardines. I don't think that that's how we're supposed to live. And I could be wrong, but this is my premise. I think that people are meant to have a little more room than that, be around a little more green than that, and live in maybe smaller communities and come together for different things, but not be all in jam-packed. And when you live in small communities, and if you don't feel like you have to leave your whole family to go start a new tribe in the middle of, Bohemian, whatever, New York City. Well, maybe if you were back home in, I don't know, Wisconsin, and you had that same situation, you know, big
Yeah.
Gam or whatever, however you, I don't know what you guys call them, Big Gam, Papa, and all those people will be there to help you and support you
Yeah.
with your family and your kids. Like that's how my grandparents did it in New York. That's how my uncles and a lot of my aunts did things in upstate New York. Our whole family was in one town. So when my mom went to Korea, because she deployed over there,
Yeah.
I went to go live with my grandmother. Like that's what we did. And when my mom would go to different trainings in when we were on Fort Hood, I would stay with Jerry and his parents for a week or two when she was in NTC or whatever. So
Yeah.
having a community is what you're supposed to have. A community. If you literally have no one to call on in times
Yeah.
like that, I would say you might want to look at the way that you're doing your relationships and why you don't have a community to lean on. Because that isn't how we're really supposed to do this.
It's not. We really need one another. You know, at no time in history have human beings been solo, single animals. We are pack animals. We need each other. We need each other for protection. And that's no different now that we have roofs over our head than when we lived in mud huts.
Correct.
You know, we need to cooperate. We specialize. Even back then when we were nomads, people had specialties and roles that they played and things that they contributed, you know?
Yeah. And I think that sometimes what I've noticed is that we make a lot of decisions as a society for our pleasure and comfort
Yeah.
that turn into problems that people want to solve with laws and regulation. And that's difficult to do because the problem doesn't always initiate there. Some of these issues that we have, they initiate with the way that we're doing life in 2022, and they have very little to do with the tech. You talk about kids, and we just had an issue happen in Texas recently where I don't even want to get into it, but a group of young boys in Georgetown, apparently someone told me it was a prominent figure. Their son got together with some other boys and they assaulted another young boy from school. And they found that he had been watching a bunch of adult programming on the hubs and violent stuff. And then they enacted some stuff that they probably watched. And I'm like, well, how do you fix a problem like that? You could restrict the internet, you could do all this stuff, but kids are there's so many ways to get on the internet. You can't stop that. You need to know what your kids are watching. You need to know what your kids are about. You need to be in your kids' life, mentoring your kids. There's nothing the government's going to do to stop that.
Yep.
That's a societal, how you raise your children problem. I don't know how you fix that.
That's wild. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so they did ask us both about climate change, but one was a question from a listener and one was their question. So we got 2 questions from listeners and they got 4. So what our questions were, I didn't write down I must not have saved it ahead of time. Shoot. Okay. The lightning round questions were stupid. We'll get to that. So we got 2 questions from listeners. What specific legislation is needed for climate change? Should the government take action to discourage fossil fuel use through taxation? Okay. Nice. Very specific question. What specific? Okay, so this is their climate question. Let's look at that. 4513.
So I think that I will speak.
Let's see.
Of making the cost of fossil fuels go up. What we're seeing
today are Rockingham's Liam Madden, Anya Tino of West Charleston, and Burlington's Erica Redic. It is time now for some questions from Vermonters. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. And just a reminder, candidates, please limit your answers to 30 seconds. All right, question number 1. Irvin in Northfield asks, what specific legislation do you believe is needed to combat and
Choose your own
mitigate climate
adventure.
change? And I would like to tack on here, do you think that the federal government should take steps to discourage fossil fuel use through taxation? Erica Redic, let's start with you.
So you like how, first of all, she hijacked his question. Let's start with that. So you took a question from the listener and then hijacked it with your own agenda. So did you hear how specific that was? Very clearly trying to get after a certain thing, right? What specific legislation do you want for climate change? And should the federal government take action through taxation? This is my answer.
Oh gosh, I don't know which one of those to answer. I think that the federal government is already doing a great job of making the cost of fossil fuels go up. What we're seeing for gas prices right now, the pain that we're feeling at the pump is a feature, not a bug. The Biden administration, as well as many in Congress, have actually said they're going to create a circumstance where gas and fuels will be too expensive.
And I would like to give you
So then she says, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And I say, "Reopen the Keystone Pipeline."
Strategy
Wait, is that what I said?
that you would advocate for in Congress.
I don't believe it is the role of the federal
Oh,
government.
yeah, this is where I say it's not the federal government's job to pick winners and losers. We saw that in the Obama administration, when they gave a bunch of money, subsidies to solar companies, and they all went bankrupt and stuff like that. Corruption. Anyway, this is their climate change question. You ready?
Yep.
Follow-up questions. Question number 1. Many of you identify climate change as a top legislative priority. At the same time, many Vermonters are struggling with rising gas prices and energy costs. How would you decrease our country's dependence on fossil fuels in a way that is affordable to all Americans? And Senator Ballant, let's start with you.
Can you believe that nonsense? Nothing? You have nothing to say?
I have nothing to say.
No comment? Are you serious right now?
What's your take on it, honey?
Oh my God. This was the one. You know what? I was like immediately mad when I started listening because of that question. It's like, here, let me give you an opportunity to sound generous and thoughtful and kind. Hey, we care about the climate, but people are worried. How can you comfort them? And you asked us, what are you going to do about climate change, and would you consider making fossil fuels more expensive through taxation? Are you?
You reading something?
No, I'm waiting for you to say something.
Oh,
I'm looking down because I'm looking to see why you're not saying anything.
Oh, because we've already said it. Everything that needs to be said is said.
We're just going to keep going over. We're not, that's it.
I mean, I think it's interesting.
All right, bye everybody. Have a nice night.
Interesting when there's like specific ones, but like, yeah, these questions are asked in a way that sets it up to be. And again, I don't know if they're like doing it that way because, oh, this is my side. So I know that this is how they feel. So I don't have to try to prompt.
But we didn't get asked. We didn't get asked anything in a way to show our care or compassion or what would you do to make it better. We got asked, what would you do? And then also, would you consider taxing things? Which obviously the answer is no. We're Republicans. Okay. So.
Well, I mean, that is not necessarily the case, but.
Okay. Well, good point.
But yes, I see. Yes, you're right. I mean, it isn't set up to make you sound endearing to the crowd, which is what you need to do more than anything else. I don't know the logic there.
And that's the thing is like, here's the thing is it's my job to like help the viewers get to know me and understand me and give good questions. Mm-hmm. But when their premise is set up that they are compassionate and loving, and our premise is that if we disagree with them, we're bad people.
Yes.
It's like every single one of these questions is set up this way.
And part of that has to just do with politics in general. being set up that way, which is
Yeah.
how do
So
you
dishonest.
how do you negotiate? It's not even dishonest. I think it's just like if you don't see the people on the other side as your coworkers
Mm,
and they're not worthy of respect, and you think that they're supervillains, like how else would you treat them? If you really think that these
yeah,
people
good point.
hate you and hate the world and don't care about people living and surviving, well, it's perfectly reasonable to treat them in a way that carries, I guess, a level of disdain. I don't think it's strategic, but I can understand how a common basic type person would react that way.
Mm,
I was talking to somebody about that with Trump, and she said, "Yeah, we had a conversation with a friend of mine. She said Trump was a racist and da da da." And they said, "Yeah, she was racist." And I was like, I don't think he was racist." I was like, "Well, you know," she said, "Well, things he said during the campaign," and there was legislation directly related to her situation as an immigrant. And what I told her, I
mm,
said, these are older people from interesting areas, and he's got a different life. The odds of somebody like him
yeah.
having some prejudices is very possible because most people, I think, carry a level of prejudice in some way to men, to women, to a color, to a creed, to a culture, whatever. Right. So that's a given. I said, so that I could see someone saying, but racist, I have a
Yeah.
hard time with that. But I'm like, if you look at that situation, I said, when we were talking about, she said, but he is a businessman. I said, and look at how the politicians treated him.
Yeah.
They didn't treat him like a businessman. Bring him a deal. Show him how the deal is beneficial for all sides. Instead, you have AOC yelling stuff and Nancy saying whatever, trying to one up Twitter
names. And
yeah, like that's not how you talk to a business guy. You're not going to bully a millionaire. That's not how that works. And it's just like, are you guys unaware of how to do your job? Because that's your actual job. Your job is to do the most for your people. And it's like if I have my kids behind me, right? And then like I'm at work, for instance, and somebody says something wild and I got to pay bills, says something wild, I could have a keeping the rule goes wrong moment. And get to do with the 1-2 shuffle tackle and the ground and pound, but I'm fired. I might have a lawsuit on my hands, and that's not going to feed my kids. My job there is to feed my kids. That's my job. So I need to be able to deal with people in a way that makes sense. And when you watch politicians, they don't act like that. They act like it doesn't matter if I'm effective at my job. All that matters is that I get to sick burn this guy I don't like or this woman I don't like.
It's the celebrity. It's
so
annoying.
Childish. It is really childish.
So we've got we'll go through a couple more. I wanted to especially cover the lightning round questions because some of these other ones are more glaring. So remember I told you we got 2 questions from the audience. So one was what specific legislation for climate change, and then Michaela hijacked with her question. And then the second one was what specifically will you do to address polarization in Congress?
Yeah.
Okay.
You also
Now,
have questions in the chat too. I can see 2 of them from Janice.
Oh, Janice says, what do they plan on doing when the globe goes through the ice age again? Exactly.
They're going to blame it on Donald Trump, and it's going to be the fossil fuels shielded us from the sun's rays, and somehow weirdly, instead of hotter and global warming, that blocked its heat and refracted it because it's some special element that causes the sun to whatever, and then that's going to be everybody else's fault again, and definitely not theirs.
Definitely not. So their questions that they got asked from the audience: will you reduce the military budget and halt the F-35s? How will you address and push forward? How will you address the push to privatize Medicare? What is the most difficult vote or public decision you've ever had to make? How do we welcome climate refugees without making Vermont more unaffordable? Generally, how would you make Vermont more affordable? I mean, look at are you kidding me right now?
I want to see
when
those
I talk
questions.
about. So not only did they get all 4 of those actual substantive questions that I would have loved to have talked about, they also got what is the most pressing foreign policy issue facing the U.S. and how should we address it? They also got what about racial inequality and what do you think we ought to do nationally? Like, I would have loved to have answered these questions. And you know what? They asked Dr. Myers a follow-up. They were like, why should you run since you're a white man? White men are the problem. See, I'm not even kidding you. I was so offended. I'm not even kidding. I'll play it for you and so you can tell I'm not being hyperbolic.
But also part of the thing you got to remember here, and this is the question is like, do they think that you want to answer those questions? Because I know a lot of your colleagues probably would have.
Oh, yes.
It wouldn't have been good for your colleagues to answer those questions.
I called the producer after watching the Senate debate, the Republican Senate debate, and the nonsense questions they asked. Are you vaccinated? Who won the 2020 election? Which was one of our lightning round questions.
Yeah, I saw
They didn't ask the Democrats who won the 2016 election, even though Democrats actually did contest the 2016 election. I know everybody's memory is only 5 minutes old.
Those to contest.
So, but whatever. Okay. So you guys, they got asked actual questions that matter to the American people and matter to their audience. So here's the thing is these questions are supposed to be geared for your audience. And so when I called after the Senate debate and I talked to the producer and I said, I said, these questions were not substantive. Like, I don't feel like I got to know these candidates any better. And he said to me, well, this is what our viewership is interested in. And I said to him, are you honestly telling me that your viewership cares more about my vaccination status than whether or not I'm competent enough to lead this country through the oncoming crisis and recession that we're facing? And then I stopped talking and I waited quietly for him to answer me. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, these were things that we thought were important and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, got it. I said, well, you do know your viewership better than I do. I'm just surprised. And I'm letting you know, as a Vermonter, I'm deeply disappointed with your question choices because I don't feel like I know these candidates any better than I did before the event. And so I was trying to let him know, we're watching you, or maybe you just don't care. Maybe you really just don't care.
Well, maybe. Well, it isn't. I guess not. I hate to put a motive behind what people are doing. It's possible he doesn't care. It's possible they don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. It's possible your side of the debate wasn't really to help candidates decide if they like you, but maybe to help their viewers decide if they want to disqualify you.
Well, and that's the thing is, okay, so you ask us the hot button topics that are sure to divide us, but you ask them the ones of substance that actually matter.
And I mean, the reason I say I'm not sure sometimes because there's certain things that they'll say here that, again, I think if you had a different voting turnout in Vermont, this wouldn't be as bad. Because saying things, are you going to reduce the military's budget, yada, 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 typically they'll get people from the right or middle to go, yeah, I'm not with that, especially considering we're getting ready to, have a situation happen possibly here. But because of the way that the demographics break up for voters in Vermont, that actually there's not as much danger to ask them probably a question like that.
Yeah.
As asking you a question about abortion. So
it's hard not to see this as super duper nefarious.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I agree that there are things that are not done well. I don't know how much. I don't know how much of that is just not asking. I don't know how much of it's, I don't want to say stupidity, but just making a bad choice, and how much of it is I'm intentionally trying to railroad you.
I'm calling out right now the Republican press to do a debate for each side. So maybe True North Reports and Vermont Daily Chronicle and Ethan Allen Institute can all get together or something and either separately or together host one and have it be and do this. And I'm not even saying do the same nonsense to them that they do to us, but I'm saying give real substantive questions to both sides and be fair. That's what I'm saying. So
I think
then
that's
here's
fine.
our lightning round questions. Okay, so there's the one. Oh, wait, hold on.
Janice had another comment, by the way.
It's scary. Everything I hear is that we disagree. We're deemed domestic terrorists. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to close with this, or we're going to wrap up this section, and then we're going to do a quick campaign catch up.
You are allowed to use more than 3
Oh, okay.
words.
Yeah, I believe that the
It was
Well,
who won the 2020 election, and how would you describe January 6th?
The
The events of January 6th. That's what it was. So they asked us those questions, and what they got for lightning round questions: what role does faith have in your policy making decisions?
I'm curious how they answered that, actually.
Considering none of them apparently are believers, because none of them said anything about God. Dr. Lewis Myers says something about respecting other people's faiths. And then somebody else was like, oh, the earth is my faith. And then, oh, the people. And I was like, you guys did a really bad job coming up with answers on this one, but whatever. But you don't ask the conservatives what faith has in their policymaking issues, when you can normally assume that people who are conservative are people of faith. Not always, but often.
See, that's one of those ones where, again, I would, looking at that, I might assume that they said they did that because they're making assumptions. So they're like, what do we need to ask you for? Not that it's necessarily nefarious, but here's the thing. Realistically, if you're speaking to somebody on their side that doesn't have much interest in faith, and you would answer that question, I mean, I think it would be good for them to know how it applies to the way that you govern. But as far
I would
as
love
like,
to answer that question. My faith does do that somewhat, but I don't need to call on my faith to be well reasoned and rational and come up with policies that are better for the majority than, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Anyway,
I think that would make more sense, and that will be useful to hear from you guys. Versus how does it play in, and pretty much going to say it doesn't, more than likely, which is.
Yeah, they all had a weird answer. Do you support universal basic income? What is one thing that helped you through the most difficult part of the pandemic? So again, humanizing. They got 4 lightning round questions. We got 2. We got who won 2020 and what about January 6th?
Yeah, that's rough.
They got what role does your faith play? Do you support universal basic income? What is one major thing that helped you through the most difficult part of the pandemic? And what's one major policy issue you've changed your mind on?
I'm actually curious how they answered some of those questions. Like the most difficult part of the pandemic. I'm curious how they landed on that one.
It is so nonsense.
That's kind of jacked up. What do you think about January 6th? One, especially for the conservatives, it's a much more dangerous question. You run the risk of splitting actually your voter base over questions like that if you don't answer that right.
Which is the same
if you're thinking about like over both of those issues.
Yep, exactly. It's like, and if you are, and the abortion question, to be honest with you, to me, is also to divide our voting base, because you have socially liberal Republicans, or you have more moderate Republicans, and then you have Christian conservatives who are one issue voters. They vote on abortion, period, and no other topic. And so if you go, okay, well, maybe we should try incrementalism, just like they did with us. Hey, we need to change people's minds. Hey, we need to work on this. Hey, why don't we try to, and so if you just try to talk to people about being strategic, so that we don't alienate the entire middle who we need to vote for us if we hope to get elected, like those people do not care. And so I've been accused of being pro-choice, pro-abortion, and like in favor of abortion.
Yeah, those are very different things.
Because I try to be sophisticated with my answers so as not to alienate pro-abortion folks. And then I also ask people, I say, well, here's the deal. Do you want me to go and legislate like they do? When they don't listen to us, they don't hear what we say, they don't care about our opinions and what we want. If 68% of Vermonters don't think that there should be any restrictions in the first trimester, are you saying that I should not listen to the majority of my constituency? Then you're literally asking me to go to Washington and be the same crappy representative that we don't like and we're mad at right now.
The thing is that you're not a representative at that point. You're a king or something. You're not representing anyone at that point. You're representing yourself, which there are politicians that think that that's their job. You're going to elect me and I'm going to go do what I want to do. And there's other ones that think you're going to elect me and I'm going to go do what you're wanting me to do. And
that's
fight
right.
for your values. And people really don't often tell you exactly what they think their job is. So,
yes.
I mean, it's rough. And like that, there's some of these issues that are very, very tough to answer. I'm more like, what does the Constitution say? That's kind of my deal.
And so this is the thing is like pretty much you can, if you ask me, and if I tell people I'm a constitutional conservative, then what you can expect from me is to read these bills and figure out whether or not they're constitutional. And that is how I'll vote. That is at least the pledge that I will give to Vermonters. I will actually serve and protect our Constitution.
Yeah, because when you have too many people up there, and it doesn't matter what side it's on. Here's a good one. So when Barack Obama was doing all the executive order stuff, right? I was like, this is wrong. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it was whoever else you liked in there. I don't care if Ron Paul was in there and he was doing executive orders. I'm like, that's not how this is supposed to go. And when you start to set precedents like that, the next person that gets in there, when the pendulum swings back to the other side, is going to, one, reverse all the things you did, and then get two, they're going to be like, oh, we can just do these things. We can just do these things. And then it swings back to the other side because people don't like that. And what do you get? Basically, you end up with a bunch of things happening to people, additional traumas to our nation, financial, emotional, whatever the ramifications of those quick change laws are. And those traumas create pain, scar, damage that we then have to go through and try to fix. You've created more problems that people have to now try to rectify moving forward. And people don't think that far ahead. They think right now, this issue is important to me right now, and we need to do this thing right now. It's like, great, but what kind of a precedent did you set?
Yep.
And is it good? And does it have anything to do with the Constitution? No. So you're mad at them for not doing things constitutionally. So your plan is to go do things unconstitutionally because they did things unconstitutionally, and then they're going to do things unconstitutionally because you did things unconstitutionally.
It sounds like a bad marriage. It sounds like an unraveling marriage.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
That's what it is.
And everybody's acting like the scorned spouse.
Yeah. You're assuming the other side has all ill intent. You've done nothing wrong. You're the perfect sacred hero. That's what you're going to tell your friends. And then your friends and your relatives. And then you're going to badmouth this person. And even when one person tries to fix it or be reasonable, you're going to assume that they have ill intent. So nothing they say can be right. Nothing they're doing can be heartfelt or really come from the heart. And so you can't make that. That doesn't work.
Well, and this is a really good opportunity to segue into what I was teasing, which was what is the greatest threat to this campaign, to this election, not just my campaign, but our election in November. So the scorned spouse metaphor can also be used for Republicans. So the greatest threat to this election, in my opinion, in Vermont. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the rest of the country. I'm not going to talk about anywhere else. I'm going to say specifically from my perspective, in my experience so far in the first 6 months of this campaign. The greatest threat to my campaign and to generally everyone's campaign this November is Republicans.
Explain.
It is not. It's not the press. It's not the Democrats. It's not even voter integrity. And people are going to be super mad at me for saying that.
And get yelled at for that one.
Oh yeah, probably just lost a few
How
supporters.
dare.
I'm sure I just lost a few supporters, but this is like family time, real talk. Okay.
Yeah.
This is like, we need to have a serious conversation, you guys. Because yes, we do have to make sure that we have election integrity. The fact that the state of Vermont changed its laws illegally, there may not have been voter fraud proven here. As far as I'm aware, no voter fraud has been proven. Nothing has been brought to court. But we do know that our election laws were changed illegally by the Secretary of State with the approval of the governor, instead of going through the legislative process like it's supposed to. So that's a problem. And you, the voter, should have a problem with that. And you know what you do to fix that? You elect new people. You get people of integrity who are conservative or at least moderate and can do math to run for office. And then you support them, you support their campaign, you give them money, you donate your time, you share it with your friends and family.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I'm seeing instead right now are a bunch of Republicans who are mad at other Republicans. And so because they are scorned and they feel hurt by ghosts of Republicans past or ghosts still in office currently, you know what? I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican, and I'm just going to take my ball and go home. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to help campaign. I'm not going to donate any money because, oh my God. And you know what? By the way, I disagree with you on this one topic. I agree with you on 90% of everything that you said, and I think you're great. I disagree with you on 10%. I think you're totally electable, and I actually like you as a person. But because of this 10% we disagree on, I'm not voting for you, and I'm not helping you, and I'm not supporting you. And then those same people will be like, I don't understand why we can't get good candidates. I don't understand why the Republican Party only has rhinos in it. And I don't understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, they call people rhinos. And I've been guilty of that. And then they call people names, and they call them baby killers, and they call them this, and they call them names, right? The socially liberal Republicans. The conservatives call them names and treat them terribly. Okay. So remember, I'm not done yet. Everybody's going to get talked to here. So then you've got the social liberal Republicans over here, and they're like, oh my God, they're calling me names. They're being so mean. Well, we're not on the same team either. And so you know what? Screw you. If you went to DC on January 6th, you're a terrorist. And oh my God, if you're not vaccinated, then you're a POS. And then, oh, by the way, abortion's great, and we need to take it out of the platform, and screw you. And then they take their ball and they go home. And then they're like, oh my God, why doesn't the party do anything? How come nobody helps? And how come nobody? They're literally, it's like conservative Republicans and liberal Republicans are just angry and scorned by one another. And instead of getting off the crazy treadmill, what is that called? That book, Love and Respect, that we read?
Yeah.
What was it? The crazy cycle or something? What did he call it?
Something like that. It's some kind of a cycle.
So basically, it's like we're in this cycle where we think the other side, we're so focused on fighting one another and being angry at one another that we have lost sight of who the real enemy is.
And I mean, the enemy is a strong word, but yes.
Who our real opponent is.
Mm-hmm.
Who the person we need to be arguing with, who we need to be questioning their motives and demonstrating to the world where the problem lies.
Yes.
See, because Republicans, conservatives, moderates, we have the better ideas. We have the more compassionate, the more loving ideas for people, but we do a terrible job of communicating it. And we're so busy fighting and tearing each other down that we're not being strategic and figuring out how to best craft our message that really is more compassionate to the average Vermonter so that they can see that we're on their team.
Yes. And I mean, it's not just that the one side has better answers. They have more consistent answers. So for instance,
a basis,
a foundation. You may not like the game of basketball, but the rules in the game of basketball work very well for the game of basketball. If you get in there and you start adding hockey rules to a basketball game, there's a stick in there all of a sudden, or you can now have fist fights or whatever. Like, it doesn't function well. You're going to get something, but it's not going to be basketball, and it's not going to be basketball function better. And that works with society. That works with the way families are supposed to work. That works with the way work is supposed to work. The employee-employer relationship, a basic male and female relationships. When you start trying to adjust one part of a thing, that's supposed to function together. Together, it might be a B, like a B level of function. But when you start messing with it, it might get less effective because it was never meant to run that way. It was meant to function as a whole. And people, I don't know, they think it's like a freaking Honda Civic and they're going to put new rims, body kit, new sticks. I mean, you can do that. I mean, you're just going to avoid the warranty. You're going to avoid the warranty with that engine swap. It might work better. It might drive faster. You might blow something in there because it wasn't built to run that way. And that's what I think a lot of people do when it comes to politics. And that's the whole thing about conservatives and people who like the Constitution. People thought very hard about how this thing was all supposed to work together. And we just pretend like that never happened.
Right. And that, well, you know what? They're just a bunch of all racist white men and stupid. And so why would we listen to them?
Exactly. And I mean, that's a fantastic question to ask.
No,
No, it's a fantastic question to ask. You listen to the people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
If you were getting ready to die and you needed a doctor to operate on you, and there was one dude who was not even through med school, and there was another dude that you knew was not particular about people your color, which one would you want to operate on you?
Right.
The one with the matching morals, or the person who's trained and knows exactly what they're doing? I want the person who knows what they're doing. So even if they had some misguided views on a bunch of different things, here we are. And even if you want to take that argument, look at the views that our entire society maybe had 15, 20 years ago on whatever social topics we have going on today, and how misguided they all were then. Okay. So that means we're not really that much better, and we're definitely not smarter, which is the other concept that people seem to think about the past. Like, if you understand properly what some of our ancestors were doing, they were far more capable and understood their world far better than we did.
Oh my God. They had to. Oh, that's a whole other topic that we could totally go down the rabbit hole on. So, so this is my plea to my Republican people. Remember what matters. Remember what's most important, and most of all, remember what's at stake in this election. Do you care more about your feelings?
Ooh.
Do you care more about being validated and being heard by the people that you disagree with?
Owning them.
Oh, good point. Oh, yeah, you might win some, you might feel good about yourself owning the people that you don't like. All the memes that I see about some of our elected officials and the decisions that they make, you might feel good about that. Does that win voters?
I mean,
does that address $5.10 gas, or $7-8 home heating oil? Does that address the fact that we live in one of the most unaffordable states in the union, second unfriendliest state to do business, one of the most expensive tax burdens? Like, what is it? Do you care more about your feelings and owning the Republicans that don't behave the way that you like, or do you want to make this country better?
Most people care far more about their feelings, and someone will probably argue their principles than being effective.
Yeah,
that's the counter.
You can spare me your principles when the world is burning down. You know what I mean? Like, I got into an argument with somebody who said that if Christina Nolan wins the Republican nomination, they won't vote for her. There's a bunch of people have said that if she gets the Republican nomination for Senate, they won't vote for her because she supports the Roe versus Wade precedent. And I'm like, so you're voting for Peter Welch then? And they're like, oh, no, I can't vote for her because I can't believe. And I'm like, so your solution to your principles and upholding your principles is to allow a person who wants abortion up to the point of birth to get elected. Spare me your principles. I mean, seriously, when your two choices are the guy who thinks that 9-month-old babies in the womb should be allowed to be killed, you're going to vote for that guy versus the girl who's like, I just, first trimester maybe is okay. Can we just agree to that? That is your choice. And so you're just going to let the other guy get elected. I don't know why you would do that.
Well, here's the thing. I think people think that they're making a statement when they do stuff. And I can understand that. And I could definitely understand it if it wasn't what we're talking about. But it's like, here's a good question. So you have your daughter in front of you right now. And that situation is on the table in front of you right now. And there are direct consequences to that decision. You wouldn't vote that. You wouldn't abstain from the vote.
Oh, wow.
You wouldn't, if somebody's life was on the line, you wouldn't say, oh man, it's whatever. You wouldn't say, I'm just not going to vote. You're going to have a very strong opinion at that point in time. You are.
Correct.
But because it's so distant and you can't see it and you can't really feel it right now, you can afford to acquiesce to the opposition, because that's what you're doing if you understand the numbers in Vermont. Anybody who doesn't vote, anybody who's in Vermont who doesn't vote, it is a vote for the people who are the majority right now.
Correct.
You are voting for the incumbent. And I know a lot of people say my vote doesn't matter. That is also a vote for the incumbent. And what you just did to the political elite out there is you told them that I'm not even worth talking to because I'm not going to do anything anyways. And if you think that that's a better option to quit and acquiesce and kneel down before your Lord and Masters and not even look like you're putting up a fight, fantastic. Also, if you're concerned about election integrity, that doesn't matter if you don't vote.
And that's what I'm hearing people say, there's election integrity issues, and so therefore I can't trust it. And it's like, no, that means fight harder.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Continue to fight.
The answer to there being problems and corruption is not take your ball and go home.
Correct.
It's pick up your sword and fight. And when I say sword, I mean, let me just be clear before somebody takes me out of context. I mean, be a poll watcher, volunteer to be a poll worker. Actually, how about actually vote?
Yeah.
And I had somebody argue this with me. He's like, oh no, more people than that vote. I'm like, dude, I looked at the numbers. It's like 40% of registered voters in Vermont don't vote for the Senate or House seat every 2 years. Okay, 40%. And everyone that I talk to that doesn't vote are people who would vote for our team.
Yeah.
All of them. And so when I'm like, people are talking to me a lot about voter integrity and their concerns about voter integrity and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's awesome. What are you doing? Who are we talking to? Who do we need to get out to vote? When I start seeing like 60, 70, 80% voter turnout, then I'll know that we actually have the opportunity to make some differences. We will actually be able to change laws in the legislature. We will be able to close loopholes. We'll be able to get rid of mail-in ballots. We'll be in charge of what voting machines we use and what companies we use to do the balloting. It requires Republicans and conservatives to participate in their own self-governance.
Well, that's the problem that you're talking when you say self. Many people have been taught by life over time, I don't know what, that somehow this is like watching the NFL. They think that politics. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it's not a spectator sport. Politics, government is not a spectator sport. it is sensationalized. I like to get on my little phone and watch my little YouTube videos just as much as everybody else does.
Mhm.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Hunter.
No, that's exactly right. And so because they think it's a spectator, so like you're sitting in the stands. More importantly, you're paying to sit in the stands. And then you're complaining about the outcome on the field. But there was open tryouts last week. You didn't go. And then you talk about how stupid the politicians are, but you didn't run.
You
So
didn't
doesn't
help
that
a campaign.
Wait. So you didn't help a campaign and you didn't run. And somebody who's not that intelligent or is not good at their job, they got the job. How stupid does that make you to allow stupid people to govern you?
Oh my God, help me, Lord. Lord help me.
I mean, if you're not engaged, and I know this is probably the rough one for y'all, and I'm sorry, but like these are the conversations we have here when I talk to my friends. Like acquiescence is not like you don't get a pass for that. Also, especially if you're like a dude, you're not supposed to be passive. You're supposed to actively seek to address issues. A lot of bad things happen when you guys act passive. That's a whole other conversation. But the key here is that engagement, and you're supposed to be involved. And if that means $5, if that means 5 minutes, if that means whatever that means, if that means liking the video and sharing it with some people, if whatever it means, however
Yes.
you can engage, if it's not with Erica, if it's with somebody else, you should be engaged. Otherwise you're living your life like a child, and you are allowing
Other people.
No, let me speak. You're allowing adults that you don't trust to run your life, and then you're complaining about it in the bleachers. Not even in the bleachers, in the stands.
Yep.
You're not even on the bench. You're not even on the team. Like,
and not only, and then the same people, like the Christina Nolan situation I told you about, not only will they not vote for her, is what they said, they're trying to spoil it and make everybody hate her. And look, I'm not saying I have a preferred candidate. I've talked to both Gerald and Christina. I like them as candidates both differently. They both have problems and they both have benefits. I've not spoken to Myers Mermel personally, although I think he's going to be coming on the show here in the next few weeks. So I got to send him some information, get him on. But you're going to not only because of your emotions, how you feel, then you're going to try to convince other people to go out and vote.
Yeah.
And isn't there, what is that like proverb in the Bible where it's like, if you sin, it's bad, but if you cause other people to sin, you're like the worst.
Yeah. And I think it depends on your position. Obviously, if you know better and all those sort of things, but I forget.
Teacher.
If you're a teacher.
But that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of these people are influencers in the Republican Party.
Well,
and so their party, they might be town chairs. They might be county chairs and they're behaving like that.
Well, they're all off in their emotions. And again, it's about strategy. Do you want to win? Is the issue matter enough for you to fight as hard as possible to win? Or is it more important that you got to say that you fought against something? And here's the thing, there's a validity to that argument, but understand that you're undermining the efforts of other people who feel like the issue is important enough to need to win.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about lives, then we're
actual lives,
then we really need to have a different conversation.
Yes. And this people, I'd like to give this, the Democrats will vote in lockstep with one another, regardless of what they think.
They stole a candidacy from Bernie Sanders. They stole it. And then he got he just realigned.
He just acquiesced.
I think he was weak for doing it. But the point being,
but
wow,
you have Orthodox Muslims, right? So people who are like religious Muslims working with gay people, which it's like, okay, religious Muslims are no different than any other religion where they don't think they don't think homosexuality is okay, but they'll work together on that side of the aisle because they are so committed. Yeah, so groups of people that theoretically should not be getting along, right? No moral judgment on either side. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with either one of those things. Yeah. I'm just trying to create an image that two groups of people who in theory should not get along will cooperate for the outcome that they want.
Republicans and conservatives are losing because of a lack of unity. It's not the ideas, it's messaging, the marketing is bad, and unity. That is what is happening.
Yep. And I told this story today, and I don't know, this is one I'm probably going to get in trouble for too, but it needs to be said. You know, people keep talking smack about Paul Dame, the Vermont State GOP chair. They think that, like, whether you talk to either side, the conservative or the liberal Republicans, they're both mad at Paul because he is being supportive of everyone. So the conservatives are mad that he's supporting liberals, and the liberals are mad that he's supporting conservatives. And he's just like trying to help all of us and unify people, unify the party, and get everybody behind. They're like, why isn't the party doing this and that and whatever? And I'm like, they don't have any money and they don't have any volunteers either. It's just Paul. And he's got to, oh, go ahead.
And there's two sides to that. One, we had a interesting chat with him when I think he first got selected about strategy, and we didn't agree 100% on what was going on. I think he came around to some of the things that I was saying in that conversation that we were trying to get across, but at the time, no, we weren't 100% in lockstep. But we had a strong conversation, but it was respectful. Because there's no benefit in alienating that person that's supposed to be on your team. And we literally just had this happen with another private matter with real estate, where there's an individual in office that, and I'll let you tell that if you want to tell that, a brief version of it. But the point is, had we scorched earth, angrily insulted something, we found ourselves in a situation where we needed someone in government to do a specific thing, and there was no way around it. And to not get it done cost us a bunch of money, time, opportunity. It was a very costly issue. And there was an individual who's not on our side politically. However, we had to go to him directly. Hey, man, look, I need you to get this done because your people are not getting this done. And they squared it away. So how would it have benefited us to dog that man out, to talk smack like he's trash, we hate him, yada, yada, yada? Would he have gotten up off
he's this, he's that?
How would it have benefited us or our cause to drag him when we ended up needing his aid at some particular point in time?
We're not saying we don't call out mistakes, not saying we don't hold people accountable.
Correct.
But can we just remember that we're neighbors?
We don't need all this energy. It's way too much energy.
Way too much energy.
And more
Brian.
It's got to be, you just need to be effective.
Brian, I'm sorry. You messaged this a little while ago. Benjamin hits it exactly. They paint you into a box, and then on the other side, they allow them to express themselves and their views, whereas your views must be confined within said box. Yes. That is
absolutely.
Yes. That was a good distillation.
Yes. Also, Janice said, is the thing about being deemed domestic terrorist. That's not a dissimilar issue. Like, I heard Joy Behar when she said that thing about the guns, and I was like, wow, that's so inaccurate. You think black people don't have guns? It's like, wow, that's really interesting.
Like black ATX tactical doesn't exist.
Correct. Exactly. Like, just as a black person, let me just say a lot of black people have guns.
Thank you for teaching everyone that.
Joy Behar, if you need to have me on the show to talk about, Maz Touré and Koleon Noir, it's plenty of black people. There's a whole organization called NAAGA. There's a couple different black African-American organizations. There's a book called Negroes with Guns. There's a bunch of things out there about black people. Also, we were cowboys. You know what cowboys had? Yeah. We also have guns. So, really? It's just an interesting perspective, but it is funny when they talk about disagreeing with the way government wants to do stuff, and that makes you a domestic terrorist, you're a threat. They're very good at using the law. They're very good at being Karens and gaslighting and setting up situations. You talk about, like, you guys got asked about January 6th. What is it Tim Cass was talking about? May 29th? He said we should be asking about May 29th.
What's May 29th?
During BLM, there was riots and people were I think they set something on fire and tried to get into some building, some courtroom
Oh.
or whatever. And there's like this stuff even going on with the judges right now. They said that's threatening. I said that's actually illegal too. It's been interesting listening to Tim Cass cover what they're doing with the Supreme Court justices and talking about that. He said, they keep talking about January 6th. He said, there was a bunch of things that happened. He said, but the conservatives and Republicans they didn't. Where's your commission? Where's your thing looking up those issues? Why didn't the Democrats and the progressives get asked that question? When they asked you about January 6th, they should have asked them, what did you think about the riots that happened during
Right.
BLM?
Exactly. If we're going to discuss political riots, political violence,
you can feel however you want to feel about BLM as a movement, and BLM as an organization, two different things. Well,
Yep.
Multiple organizations, but that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
You can feel however you want to feel about homegirl buying $1 million mansions. We're not talking about that. You can't dispute the fact that there were riots. You can't dispute the fact like David Dorn and there are people.
They called them the 1619 riots and the BLM riots and stuff like that. Like they named it that themselves.
I'm just saying, like, it don't matter how you
my
want to
God.
run it. Those some fiery, mostly peaceful riots, and you got to contend that they took place. I'm just saying, those are facts. Those are facts. It's not an opinion.
Well, on that note, I told myself we were just gonna do an hour-long show, and then we got rolling like we always do.
There's a lot of wild stuff going on.
I know. So again, Republicans, it is on you to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get motivated. If every Donald Trump voter in the state of Vermont donated $10 to my campaign, I would have $1.3 million, and we would win this hands down, walking away.
I think we can win it.
It's a 4-way race, y'all. It's going to be a minimum of a 4-way race. There's at least one progressive running. Liam Madden, who's running on the Republican ticket, he said in the debate, he's an independent. And if he gets the Republican nomination, he's going to decline it and run as an independent. So know he's running as an independent already. Then there's going to be a Democrat and then the Republican. So, and he's
wait, let's pause. I want to shout out Liam. For your raw honesty. One, you're trolling. As a fellow troll, I can appreciate that. I see you, fam. I think you did us a benefit in that conversation by saying that. Anya, great question. And
yep.
So
yeah, she did a great job.
It was a team effort. It was a tag team. Thank you guys so much for that. So as Republicans and conservatives, you probably shouldn't be voting for Liam because he literally told you he doesn't even really want.
No, he doesn't want it. And he's not a Republican. He's not conservative at all.
Redic, white, and blue.
Oh my God. Yes, exactly. Redic, white, and blue, Congress 2022. So yeah. So it's going to be a minimum of a 4-way race and maybe more depending on how many independents run. And if for some reason, maybe like a libertarian or somebody else jumps in there.
Nice.
But we have a better shot.
Libertarians, don't do it, fam. Don't do that. Just support Erica, have a conversation, see how much you line up before you do that. Don't do that.
I think they're trying to figure out if they can do a joint, support a candidate that is a dual whatever. Yeah. So apparently there's a national rule that says that you can't support candidates in a different party, even if you don't have one of your own running.
That's wild.
So they're working on that. I have a feeling I'm going to get the Vermont Libertarian Party endorsement.
I need y'all to get it together, baby. Come on
now. Seriously though, Republicans, we've got this year. If you guys could all just, not call people names, okay? Donate some money. Go to ericaredic.com, click the donate link, or scroll to the bottom. There's an address. You can mail me a check. I don't like talking about money. It makes me feel really awkward, just for the record. I'm not a fan. But we need money to win. Do you guys want to see great commercials that are edited well and shot well that can be produced and sent over the airways so I can win? Do you want to see inserts in your local newspapers with my face and all my information for your neighbors to read? Do you want to see lots of yard signs and pictures and posters all over the place for people to learn. It requires your assistance.
Yeah. We're not rich.
So
we're just regular people that are trying to do what we think we need to do.
So this, hopefully by the end of this week, there's going to be a new page up on the website for merchandise. So it's the shirts, t-shirts, hoodies, ladies. If you get the red ladies cut shirt, get a size bigger than you normally are. I ordered a medium and it's very narrow in the shoulders. So you might want to order a size up.
Strong baby.
Yards. I know. Look at me. We're gonna, yard signs will be up there. Order yourself a yard sign, get it directly shipped to you, wear your shirt out wherever you go. We're going to also have another page. It's going to be called the Grassroots. And we're going to have links to what we're calling the Grassroots Go bag. So it's the same bag that I carry to events, where it's got palm cards. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet cut in half. And you can even print it out on black and white. Print it out on your own printer at home and cut it in half and put it on car windshields in the local Walmart or grocery store or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't need to wait for us. You don't need us to be in your town parade, right? I can only be in like one parade a day over Independence Day, but you, as my supporter, can get your shirts and yard signs and gather your friends and neighbors together, and you can submit, or we can submit for you to be in a parade in your area. We need everyone to be on the field this year, taking responsibility for their own self-governance. We need you. We don't need 1.3 million if you'll print out flyers and put them in your neighborhood, okay? So it's going to be called the Grassroots page. Hopefully it'll be up this week, and it's a clickable link that you can just download our campaign materials and distribute it in your neighborhoods. Go door knocking, go in your own neighborhood. You don't need to wait for us to do it. And I can tell you right now that there are people do not want to volunteer. So if you hear the sound of my voice, take charge. EricaRedic.com, ErickAredic.com. We're going to have all those links up this week. Go for it. Get after it.
Yeah. I mean, you can sit on those sidelines, but you could get in the game, and be a lot cooler if you did.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if we actually turn Vermont red, what kind of message that will send across this country?
I'm just thinking, if you did all that stuff, people get engaged, you're actually governing yourselves, and then you change the conversation in Vermont to not be so freaking ridiculous, to be normal people having normal conversations and exploring values. That will be revolutionary. And if our side is able to win and do it with grace and dignity, maybe instead of owning them, because we get the chance, you show them what it's supposed to look like to lead people who may not 100% agree with everything you agree with or value. Show people what that looks like with grace and humility and care. That doesn't mean you have to be weak.
Yes.
That means you have to be thoughtful and listen, and you may not go that route, but you must say, hey, we can't do that because it doesn't make sense because of this, and this. But I hear you. Here's what we can do. That's what we should do. That's what we should be.
We really should. And I just want to give one last, I've been giving everybody crap here for like 40 minutes. So I love you, just for the record. I love you all, all of you pain in the asses, because I'm a pain in the ass too. And we're all family. We are a big dysfunctional family who just needs to get it together. But this is what I'll tell you. So a lot of people, when we talk about, I hear that if we disagree, we'll be domestic terrorists. And, a lot of people are too afraid to admit they're conservatives. And Paul Dame tells this story about how when he was running for office, he knocked on his neighbor's door. And the guy was like, well, I'm a conservative, but don't tell my neighbor. And he goes and knocks on the other person's door, and they say, well, I'm a conservative, but don't tell my neighbor. And before he knows it, everybody in his neighborhood's a conservative and they don't know it. Right. Well, I went out last night. A lot of you guys know Benjamin and I are both dancers, and sometimes we'll go out dancing to have fun and let off steam. And I told Benjamin I was going to wear my Redic white and blue hoodie out last night. And what did you say, honey? You said, are you sure that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Was it something like that?
Yeah, I was like, just be cautious. I mean, if you're going to go out and rep that kind of a way, you need to make sure that you're mindful that you're repping yourself right now. So just.
And so I was like, I wonder if anybody's going to give me a hard time or anything like that. So I'm out for about, I'm at the location, I won't say where, for maybe 10 minutes, maybe max. And I'm on the dance floor and I'm just listening to the music and I'm chilling. I'm like, what am I going to do? What are we thinking here? And then somebody sees my hoodie and it says Redic white and blue, right? Redic white and blue. And he says, oh man, he's like, I don't even have to know. I bet we're on the same team. Let's go, Brandon. Oh my God. Look. He fist bumps me. And then he grabs all his friends and they come over and they're like, oh, we do this for a living. We're the blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, you're a Republican.
Wow.
Oh my God, it's so great. I mean, it turns into a whole thing. It's like 6 or 7 23-year-olds. Okay, one of the people, it was their 23rd birthday. So it was all these 20-somethings.
Yeah.
All tired of the nonsense. They immediately then start telling me about how much they hate how things are going and what's going on. And then somebody else is like, I had met previously. I know him from a previous engagement. Not very well, but we had just met in passing. Oh, hey, good to see you. And then he saw my shirt. He's like, oh, you're advertising. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh, my friend saw your hoodie and I was picking on you for wearing campaign gear out downtown, basically. And I said, well, you know, I can find supporters here. And he's like, oh yeah, all of them are Republicans and, you know, conservative and whatever. And I was like, introduce me to your friends. And so he did. And so we go over and then, you know, like, oh, what do you think about Joe Biden? You know, I'll vote for you just because you're out partying. Oh my God, we totally need a woman in Congress. This is so cool. I mean, like, I probably got like 15 supporters going out to downtown Burlington for like an hour in my hoodie. And nobody gave me side eye. Nobody looked at me funny. Nobody gave me crap. All I got was people who were on our team saying how awesome it was and that they were going to vote for me in November.
Yep.
So do not fear. Do not be afraid to share your values. There are more of us than you know or think, and they're just as scared as you are to admit it.
Yep, Joshua 1:9.
What's that?
Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest.
Amen. I
Key
think that's the perfect place.
The key there is, have not I commanded thee.
Ooh.
That's we'll talk about that.
I like it. I think that's a perfect place to put a pin in this conversation. And thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for being here. Remember to check out betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com. If you need some support and some counseling, get help. Don't try to face things alone. We see the tragic outcome and we don't need it anymore.
Yes.
So, all right, let's we're going to get the brand going here on the way out.